Hello and welcome to another After Effects basics lesson. Today we're going to be diving into the world of track mats and content aware fill or CAF. Track mats are broken down into two different varieties. We have the alpha mats and the luma mats, which we'll talk about in more detail as we go along. So alpha mats lend their own transparency, so their alpha channel, to another clip for the composite, whereas luma mats supply the luma channel, which is their brightness, to define the transparency in the composite. Okay, so here are the assets we have. We're going to start off with the background bokeh. Again, I have stolen these from the internet, so feel free to do the same and create your own composite, however you'd like it. So we just have this this bokeh. Pretty lights. We have these pretty lights. Okay, so then we're going to bring in a dancing girl, and what I would like to do is use the girl. I want to use the outline of the girl, so obviously she's dancing, to show the bokeh. So another way of doing this might be to mask all of this out and cut it out, which we don't want to do. That's going to take ages. So this is going to be a really good example of how we're going to do it quickly. So I'm just going to bring this smaller so it fits. The other thing I could have done, I'm just going to quickly show you, is right click, transform and fit to comp, and that's just going to snap that into place, which is very handy. And then I'll put this up to fit. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to get rid of the green, so that we're going to have her dancing and then a transparent background. So we're going to have nothing here, and then I'm calling her an object. I'm not objectifying this woman. I'm saying she's going to be a physical object with a transparent background next to her once I remove the green. So let's go to effects and presets, and I'm just going to get key light. So this is obviously a kind of another lesson down the line, but the key light plus key cleaner and advanced skill the key light, key cleaner and advanced spill suppressor in After Effects is fantastic. So we're just going to drop that on, and because this is a very clean green screen and it's been very well done, we're probably going to be able to just grab the screen colour from here and drop it. We just tend to put the eyedropper as close as we can to her. There we go, that's pretty good. So I'm not going to go massively into key light. There's a lot you can do to clean that up, but actually that's done a pretty good job. So at the moment that's fine, that might be what we want to do, but what I actually want is to have like a silhouette of her in which the background is shown. So the first thing you're going to do is just make sure that your toggle switches are correct. So these modes here are going to show us we have like the 3D, the adjustment layer and the motion blur, etc. But if we press this toggle switches modes again, we have our track mats and our modes. So the modes you'll recognise from Premiere Pro. That's just how the two layers are going to interact. And then we have our track mat. So you can see that there isn't an option here because the top one, so you can see there isn't the option to add a track mat here. That's because you can only you can only use the track mat from the layer above. So obviously there's no layer above this. So they've got to be next to each other, and this one's got to be above. So if we just put alpha mat to dancing girl, it's saying that this dancing girl, the information provided by the transparency of her being there, is what we see in the background. And then we can also invert that, and then you can imagine what's going to happen. We're going to have this inverted view. And then of course if you wanted to, you could put something in the back. So let's just put a solid colour. We'll put that behind, and then obviously that's what we're going to see. And then if we put this back to inverted, it's going to be like this. So that's going to be kind of handy, you know. Then we can move the dancing girl to here. We can make her smaller. Oops. And I think that's quite a cool and very easy effect. And you could put the title of the film here, and it just makes it a little bit more fun very easily. So that is the first example, and I'm going to show you a couple more. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Luma mats. So I've got this JPEG of a map down here. Okay, so I've got this ink blot here, and you can see that it's very white and then it's very dark. So the difference in brightness is very clear. So let's go back to composition and let's bring ink blot down here. And I'm going to ask the Luma mat to be ink blot. And just because we've had mats being used, we need to just make sure that the layer that is being used as the mat is invisible, so you can't see it, otherwise it's not going to work. You're just going to see it, you have to hide it, but the information is still there. So let's see how that works. There we go. So you can just see that coming through, and then we can invert it and we'll get a really cool effect now. So the inverted Luma, so we're saying we want you to see nothing, and then when the ink appears, it is then revealing the layer underneath it, which is really cool, and you'll probably have seen that in a number of title sequences. So let's just play with this a little bit more. I'm going to just write Treasure Island, and as we know, I'm not particularly imaginative, so it's not going to change the world, but let's choose a slightly nicer font. Again, that's a crikey. I just want to choose a slightly nicer font. I want to choose something quite thick. I'll just go for this. There we go. Okay, I'll just choose something a little bit thicker and make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we can change this to alpha again, because the information is, if we turn the checkerboard on, it's either there or it's not there. Let me make this darker so we can see it. Okay, so because it's on a transparent background, we're going to use alpha, and then we'll make sure that we hide that layer. So now if we take checkerboard off, there we go. So it's using the alpha from the text. Now the good thing about this is, drop this down, you can then scale this up and zoom into the letters. So that's another thing that happens quite a lot. I'll just move the anchor point so it's in the middle. Let's put that there. We can zoom into the middle of the R there, and then if we scale up, we're going to zoom into that R. So that's quite cool, because it will it won't pixelate as you move in, which it might do with other things. So I'll reset that. And then we can always pre-comp this. Okay, so that's going to put it in its own package. And then I've got this grey ink, which is it goes the whole grayscale from black to white. So this is going to be really interesting, because when we use the Luma on this, it isn't very clear between black and white. We're going to have that whole grayscale of transparency. So if I pop this on here, and then we can use the Luma. So if we're using this whole text layer, this whole text composition to be defined by the grey when we press play, we get this really nice kind of floating feel. We could invert that. And that just means it's a little bit brighter because the image is darker, so it's inverted it, so it's relying more on the darker colours. And then finally, if we bring the ink blot, which is the very black and white one, and make sure we hide that again, we're going to get, in fact I'm going to reverse it. Okay, so it's going to start black, and then when the ink appears, it's going to use the darkness of the ink to reveal the title. And again, the cool thing about that, we can just make this a little bit smaller, so we can move all that and then just start again. And I think that's quite a cool reveal there. And it's been done in kind of 3 or 4 steps, took a couple of minutes, so it's just a cooler way of revealing your title. So the last thing I'm going to show you for track mats is for logos and lower thirds or name straps. So I'm just going to draw a box here, make it a slightly nicer colour. Okay, so I'm not very good at designing things like this. I often will just use a graphic designer who'll design it and then and then I just animate it. So I'll write Kate Hibbs. Let's make that visible. I'm making this very small, but I think I'm just going to make this a bit bigger just for ease. Okay. So Kate Hibbs, and then underneath a new layer, alright, technical specialist. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and not bold. I'll make that a little bit smaller. Oops. Okay, so let's put that there. So when it comes to lower thirds, I work backwards from the end. So I want this to appear about there. Again, I'm just going to show you one more time. We're going to make this a lot smaller, so I only want this to last about 10 seconds. So this is my zoom bar. One, two, three, four, 5. Okay, so I only want this to be about 10 seconds, so then I'm going to right click and trim comp to work area. So now this whole thing is 10 seconds, it just is a bit easier to work with. Okay, so at about 4 seconds I want this to be on site, so I'm going to enable my keyframes. So quick shortcut, I'm going to select all my layers and press P, and that's going to bring up all of my positions within the transform layers, so that's super handy. So I'm going to enable those, and then back at the beginning I want my box to be off the screen. So, oh, that's very slow, so let's bring this much quicker. There we go. It's still far too slow. There we go. Alright, that's fine. And then I'm going to just right click them both and keyframe assistant easy ease. There we go. So that's just a little bit nicer. Very good. Okay, and then I'll hit P to get those back. Right, so what I want now is for the name and the job title to appear after this box has gone into place. So I'm going to draw another box over it. I'm going to make this one very, very different colour. So I'm going to do one there, and I'll do another one that's a very different colour here. Okay, so as the box hits this position, I want the names to start revealing themselves. So the first thing I have to do, that you might have already noticed, is that these layers are not sitting one above the other. So I need to just put that there. So that is the shape layer. Let me call it name reveal, and then I will call this one job reveal. Okay, so that's the yellow one. Right, so as this box gets into place, I want my name to reveal itself. So I'll start about here, and by the time it gets to here, I want you to see my name. So I'll have this one reveal like that. And then I'm going to open this and use the same position so that it happens at exactly the same time. And then jump to the other keyframe using this arrow here. Okay, so by the time my name has revealed itself, I want my job title to have revealed itself. And then I'm going to use the alpha mat as the name reveal. I need to invert it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to make that the alpha inverted. So now when I press play, I'll slow all of this down a little bit, I think. Let's get all of our position indicators up. Okay, let's do this a bit slower so we can see. Okay, so it's not very groundbreaking, but you can see that it is a very easy way of revealing items, and with more time and more design inclination, this could be a lot nicer. The other thing you can do is attach. So if I were to hide these, so I just hit P again to hide that. The other thing I could do is, and this is probably the one I use the most often, so I will show you. Is to just add another box onto here, pre-comp these. So I'll just package the text up and pick whip the mat. So I'll just call this mat so we don't get confused. So I'll pick whip the mat to the shape layer and then give the alpha mat to that. Oops, I need to invert that. And then you can see it just drags it with it. Now for some reason, I just need to put these back to there. So I just went into my pre-comp, and as I suspected, I'd hidden that. Okay, so both my pre-comp layers are visible now and don't have any track mats within the pre-comp. So now, because I pick whipped the shape onto that, now it's gone a bit strange, so all I can do is move the starting position back because it was sort of pulling it across a bit strangely. Okay, so now I want to hide that go. It just reveals it as the box does. So we could move it. There we go, that's better. So it just reveals it as the other box does. Okay, so that was track mats and the variety of ways you can use them. And again, you know, like I keep saying with After Effects, the world's your oyster really. These are just the basic skills, but it's up to you now to just go and download things and practice with it. So the final lesson is content aware fill. I've got these 3 bits of footage to work with. So content aware fill is this box over here, and it's absolutely fantastic for removing things from shot that you don't want there. There are 3 different ways of doing it: object, surface and edge blend. So we're going to look into that now. So let's bring in stock footage. Now these 3, this edge blend is the kind of quick and nasty one to try first, but you've got the highest risk of it not really working. So if you had like a very small logo on someone's jumper, or a very big white wall with just a light switch that you wanted to get rid of, edge blend would work fine. Object, again, not objectifying this woman, but she is a moving object that needs to be removed from this shot. So if we had a plane coming through, that would be an object. You know, someone walking their dog, object. So surface we'll talk about in a second. That's going to be for removing things on a surface, and edge blend is the quick and nasty one. So let's just have a quick look. We'll just play it through, and you can see that it's just a tracking shot with a woman walking along the beach. So the first thing I'm going to do, just for the sake of this, speed wise, is to trim the comp to work area, so we've just got a shorter clip, because it's going to analyse the whole clip to complete this process. So I'm going to make sure I have that selected with the pen tool, select that, and I'm going to draw a bit of a dirty mask around her, a bit of a garbage mask. Okay, and then I'm going to drop it down and change this to none, because I need to see everything as we do this. And I'm just going to move forward and just make sure she does not leave. There we go, make sure I enable it. I'll go back to the beginning, there we go. I could probably bring this in a bit. Okay, so just make sure add an extra keyframe. So just want to make sure that she never goes outside that mask. So obviously the closer I do it to her, the better. But for the purposes of this, that should be fine. So now I need to change that to subtract. So she is out of the picture, literally. And over here you can do an alpha expansion, which is really handy if you've gone a little bit too close. It's just going to make it that bit bigger, so it's going to expand it a little. And then we're going to go to object, range is the work area, and then we're going to generate fill layer. Just hit that and wait. Okay, so that's all done, and I don't really need to say anything else. It's absolutely mind-blowingly effective. So yeah, it's just removed her from shot. And you can see down here, it's just created, it's basically created a PNG file for every second by using content aware fill, which some of you may or may not recognise from Photoshop. So it's just created a frame at a time, the fill for that. So that's pretty amazing, I think. Okay, and then logo removal. Let's start a new composition from this. So it's one of the worst. I mean, this is a very horribly graded shot. It's very strange. But let's pretend that this logo is super offensive. So I'm going to select the layer, mask it off. Okay, drop this down to none. And then I'm going to see how the tracker does. Let's see. Let's go for this. Pretty good. Actually happy with that. Okay, that's great. And then I'm going to just bring it in and I'll just use this bit. So I'll right click on there, trim contour. Okay, so we only need to do this. Okay, and then let's drop it to subtract. So we've got this hole where it should be. And then we'll go to content aware fill. And this time we're going to do surface because we're going to be taking everything we want from around here. But the point is that this is stuck to the surface that it's moving on. So that's going to help content aware fill. Generate fill layer. Sit back, have a drink. And yeah, brilliant. So if you have someone turn up with a logo that they're not allowed to use, or there's like an ugly stain on their shirt, then you can get rid of it. Or you could just do what they do in RuPaul's Drag Race and just put some duct tape over it. But now you know how to do it better, so that's great. Okay, so homework. We have this forest footage. So what I'm going to do is draw around the girl. Tracker doesn't work fantastically in this, so make it none. So I'm going to do this quickly. Okay, and then I'm just going to shorten it. That's all we need. Subtract that and generate fill layer. I'm going to make this object. So we didn't really talk about edge blend, but that, like I said, that's just going to drag things from around it, so that's really good for just very, very small things. So let's hit generate fill layer and then wait. Okay, so now we have this shot. Let's get rid of the wireframe. There we go. So we've got this shot, and it's not amazing because you can still see some movement at the bottom, but she's gone. So what I'm going to do now is duplicate this layer and call this girl, and go down to the mask, which still exists because I've duplicated the layer where the mask exists, and now I can use that to add it. So everything within the mask, so if I just hide these two layers, now everything is just her. So what I can do now is whatever I want. So I'm gonna just sort of Doctor Who her a bit. So I'm going to drop the opacity and off she goes. So I can have her flickering in and out of there we go, just have her flickering in and out of opacity. I'm going to change these to easy ease because I can do that by default. So I can have her pulsing in and out of opacity, which is really fun. Yeah, so that's kind of fun. And then you can add kind of sound effects and stuff. And you could do this if the camera was just on a tripod in the same place, but by doing it this way you can do it with a tracking shot. with a moving handheld shot. So I would go in and play with, take this time to just look at all of the effects that you can play with, because there's a lot of things you can do. You can add, add creepy rain, you could add smoke. So yeah, I'd just go and play if I were you. But for now, that is it from me. I hope you've enjoyed just sort of getting the basics of After Effects. And your homework, as always, is to go and play and have lots of fun. All right, thanks very much, and goodbye.